Well, I'm just delighted that you came out today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kansas Senate. My name is Bob Reeder, and I'm running for the Kansas Senate. If you've been watching the last few weeks in particular, but the last 10 years, the Kansas Senate has decided they don't have to talk to the Kansas House. In fact, they don't have to talk to each other. About 2 weeks ago, the chairman of the redistricting committee in the Kansas Senate stood up and walked out with the following comment: "I don't have to put up with this nonsense." And so that's what we're getting to in the Kansas Senate. Because of that, we have some real fiscal money issues at the state government. I'll talk a little bit more about the money issues soon. The problem we have today is, even though we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and we've elected our people to be in the Kansas Senate, they're not doing their jobs. They're not passing budgets. They're not giving us maps for the redistricting. So some people might ask, well, what in the world do you want to go to Topeka for? And I wrestle with that question, I really do. The first answer is I'm a fifth-generation Kansan. My family mostly came out of Pittsburgh, but my dad was a Baptist preacher. So I am from Pittsburgh, Columbus, Oswego, Chautauqua, Parsons, Wellington, Wichita, Valley Center, and now Manhattan, Kansas. So I know much of the state. I care deeply about the state of Kansas, and I want to make sure we do better for our children and get grandchildren. So that's the first reason. Second reason, when I finished college, I did a chemistry degree down in Wichita. Started at Fringe University, finished at Wichita State. A few days later, I met a young blonde, a young lady from Chicago. I had to move to Chicago to convince her to spend some time with me. She has now spent 17 years with me, and we have 7 children. I wound up getting a law degree and a business degree at the University of Illinois, where I focused on how to take a new technology to the marketplace. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to come home to Kansas, and I found out that Kansas State University had some really neat programs in how to take new inventions to the marketplace. So I joined the team here at K-State, and I have helped take more than 50 inventions to the marketplace. In the meantime, like I said, we had 7 children. Part of the reason I want to go to Topeka, even though it seems like such a mess, is because somebody has to do better for our children and our grandchildren. The fourth reason is I'm a businessman. I've been in business for 20 years. For the last 3 years, I've had my own business. I know what it takes to make sure your revenues are greater than your expenses and that you don't run out of cash. I've had my own business for 3 years. I've been in business for 20 years. I strongly believe that we can do better in the state of Kansas at helping business people have successful businesses. The final reason is I've been real active in this local community. I've been here for 13 years. Most of my activities in this community have been multi-church related. There's a lot of churches that work together in a lot of different areas. And so Mary and I, for whatever reason, we tend to gravitate towards ministries where multiple churches come together and try to make a difference for the community. One specific ministry we've had for the last 3 years is Boys Baseball Boot Camp, because you know you have to have baseball if you're going to be a good American. And so we've been teaching young boys how to play baseball for the last 3 years. And anyway, the point is, for 13 years I've invested a lot in this community, and I think being this community's senator in Topeka, I'll be able to do a lot for this community. So that's kind of who I am and why I'm running. I've got a short platform I'll walk you through, and then I'll be glad to take any questions. There's certainly a lot more issues that we have to deal with in Topeka, but the 3 I'm focused on are spending, jobs, and education. So let's talk a little bit about spending. My platform is that we should control state spending. For the last decade, the state of Kansas has had some of the highest taxes in the region. When we have the highest taxes, what happens? And you guys have seen it through the years. The jobs go to the neighboring states. The retirees go to the neighboring states. Pick another state, almost any state has lower taxes than Kansas. At least that's the way it's been for the last 10 years. And yet, we have taken our debt to the point where we owe twice as much as we bring in as a state government. We bring in about $5.5 to $6 billion. We owe $10.5 billion. That is a lot of money. Let's think about that for a second. We've had the highest taxes in the region, and yet we have the highest debt. So what this means is that some of our former governors had the best revenue years in Kansas state history, and that wasn't enough for them. The level of debt that we have is the same as a $60,000 family income having $105,000 on credit cards. These are unsecured debts. They were paid for operating expenses. But the story doesn't end there. We also don't have any cash, or at least we didn't have any cash. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, our former governor, with the full authority and acknowledgement of the Kansas Senate leadership, took our cash down to nothing. Nothing. Zero. It actually technically was $876 and a nickel in the entire state checking account. This is while we've had the highest tax revenues in the region, and while we've been doubling our debt. We still ran out of cash. That is a system that is out of control. It's my suggestion that we can and must do better for the state of Kansas when it comes to controlling our state spending. The second issue was jobs. Let's talk about jobs. My contention is that we should foster job growth. Well, what does that mean? There's a lot of different ways of thinking about that. For the last 10 years in the state of Kansas, we operated under the assumption that creation of any job is good. And so we taxed and borrowed money and spent all our cash and hired as many people as we could as state employees. Now, I don't have anything against state employees, but when you look at the grand scheme, what we did in Kansas was hire more state employees than any other state in the union, given our size. We created government jobs and we lost private sector jobs, even in years where the economy was coming back and all 49 other states created private sector jobs. The reason for that is our government is big in terms of taxes, in terms of debt, and we keep spending, spending, spending. You create government jobs, you lose private sector jobs. And that's what we've done for the last 10 years. My belief is a better way to create jobs is to decrease the size of government, decrease the amount of taxes, get rid of burdensome regulations, and let business do business. My job here at Kansas State University has been specifically to create high-paying, high-technology jobs, and I plan to take that knowledge with me to the State House. We can and must do better in terms of how we think about creating jobs in the state of Kansas. Finally, on education. You've heard me say that I got a chemistry degree, a law degree, a business degree. I'm passionate about education. I was public school all the way through K-12. I went to public universities for undergraduate and graduate school. Today, my wife and I have 7 children, and we have chosen to homeschool. I think it's working well for us, but we don't expect that the whole nation's going to do this. In fact, we know they're not. So I'll be an advocate for school choice. However, I'm absolutely committed to the notion that a civilized society must make available an excellent public education to all of their children in order to prosper. We must have excellence in public education. The federal government and the state government have put lots of rules and regulations and unfunded mandates on our local school districts. If we can enable our local administrators, enable our local teachers, enable our local parents and our local students to make their own decisions, we're going to have excellence in education, because the fact is we know what's best for our students and we should be allowed to do it. What the state needs to do is make sure and stand up and provide an adequate funding for an excellent education in the public schools, and then back off and say, and the local school gets to decide how they're going to spend the money. It's not what they do right now. They give them money and they say, you well, put it in this program. You well, put it in that program. And oh, by the way, you'll find money from somewhere to put in that program because we're going to make you do it, but we're not going to give you the money to do it. You have to enable the locals to make better decisions. The teacher can do it. The parents demand it, and our students are worth it. We must do better for education. So in conclusion, there's many reasons I care passionately about Kansas and this community. I want to do better for my kids. I want to do better for business. And the three areas we've talked about, I want to control state spending. I want to focus on job growth, foster job growth, and I want to be an advocate for education. Those are the reasons I'm running. This is a critical year, a very important year for us to take back on behalf of the people what we're doing in Topeka, and I do hope that you will vote for Bob Reeder for Kansas Senate in this year's election. Thank you very much.